The sound of crunching gravel beneath Joe's old pickup was the only thing breaking the oppressive silence of the Texas landscape. He had been patrolling this arid stretch near Amarillo for years, but today felt different. The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the cracked earth. It was then he spotted them, tire tracks cutting through the dust, leading from nowhere. Joe's brow furrowed. These marks weren't from any road. They started and ended abruptly, as if the vehicle had simply vanished into thin air. He parked his truck, the familiar creak of the door echoing in the stillness, and, curiosity gnawing at him, followed the tracks on foot for a short distance. The weight of the heat pressed down on his back, a reminder of the isolation he so often felt in this desolate land. As he walked, the tracks seemed to lead him deeper into the underbrush until suddenly they disappeared. It was as if the ground had swallowed them whole. Frowning, Joe scanned the area, and that's when he noticed an odd shape partially hidden behind some scraggly bushes. Moving closer, his heart raced. A minivan, old and covered in dust, stood forlorn among the dried-out weeds. He instinctively glanced around before approaching. The scene felt wrong, as if he was intruding on something buried deep in the earth's memory. A chill ran down his spine as he peered inside. Toys scattered across the back seat, a child's car seat empty but still strapped in, and an open suitcase spilling out clothes far too small. A half-empty bottle of milk sat precariously in the cup holder, still cold to the touch. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and forgotten dreams. Joe felt a knot tighten in his chest, a familiar ache, a memory resurfacing of his sister, trapped in a cycle she could never escape. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was staring into the remnants of a family's world, one that had slipped through the cracks like sand. Then, in the glove compartment, he found the packet, shelter forms for victims of domestic violence, all blank, like the lives they might represent. A wave of unease washed over him. Should he call it in? Should he alert someone to the presence of a family that might be lost, perhaps in more ways than one? He hesitated, the weight of the radio in his hand suddenly unbearable. If he called 911, it could mean saving lives, but it also meant confronting the harsh realities he had tried to avoid for so long. What if they were fine? What if they were just gone? The questions spiraled, intertwining with his thoughts. He could choose to pretend he never found this place, let it sink back into obscurity. Yet, as he stood there, the quiet surrounding him felt alive with unspoken words. Some tracks, he realized, while appearing to lead nowhere, might actually point to uncomfortable truths that needed to be faced. With a deep breath, Joe made his decision. He raised the radio to his lips, ready to reach out into the void, ready to face the unknown. Joe sat back against the dashboard of his pickup, the late afternoon sun casting an orange glow through the windshield, illuminating the dust motes that floated lazily in the air. The radio crackled softly, filling the space with the faint sound of an old country tune. It was a tune he had heard countless times, a reminder of simpler days when life felt less complicated. But today, its familiarity brought him no comfort. Instead, it felt like a cruel contrast to the unsettling scene he had just stumbled upon. Patrolling the backroads near Amarillo was a job Joe had taken on after years of working in the factory. He was a simple man with a simple life, finding solace in the routine of driving the same stretch of road day in and day out. The landscape was a patchwork of browns and yellows, dotted with scrubby bushes and the occasional tumbleweed that rolled across the gravel like a lost soul. This was home. It had its own rhythm, and Joe had learned to appreciate the quiet, the solitude, and the predictability of his surroundings. He often found himself lost in thought during his patrols, reflecting on the moments that defined him, A childhood spent in this very landscape, the laughter of friends who had drifted away, the regret of dreams he never pursued. Yet as he glanced back toward the minivan, those thoughts felt trivial compared to the weight of responsibility he now bore. Joe took a deep breath, trying to push aside the nagging sense of dread that had settled in his stomach. He remembered the last time he had seen his sister Sarah, before she disappeared into a world he could only glimpse from the outside. Her laughter, once bright and full of life, had become a haunting memory. She had been caught in a cycle of pain, and no matter how hard he tried to save her, he felt powerless. It was a burden he carried with him, a guilt that never faded. He shook off the memories, focusing instead on the present. The call had gone through, and he knew the authorities would soon be on their way. That thought offered a sliver of relief, but it was overshadowed by the fear of what they might discover. What if the family had been in trouble? What if they were still out there, lost and desperate? The unknown gnawed at him, and he felt a compulsion to do something, anything, to find out what had happened. With a heavy heart, Joe stepped out of his truck once more, the heat of the sun bearing down on him as he walked back toward the minivan. The shadows were growing longer, but they felt alive now, wrapping around him like whispers from the past. Slowly, he approached the vehicle, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots echoing in the stillness. As he opened the sliding door, the musty smell of forgotten memories hit him. He couldn't ignore it. The toys scattered across the back seat, the empty car seat, the suitcase that had been abandoned as if its owner had just stepped away for a moment. Joe's fingers brushed against a small stuffed bear, its fur matted and dusty. He picked it up, feeling the weight of its absence, the echo of laughter that once surrounded it. A pang of sorrow hit him hard, and he fought to push back the tears threatening to spill over. "Who were you?" he whispered to the bear, his voice barely louder than a breath. "What happened to your family?" The shadows seemed to stretch and shift around him, mirroring his growing unease. He looked around, half expecting to see someone emerge from the trees, but there was only silence. The wind picked up, rustling the dry leaves and sending a shiver down his spine. It felt like a sign, a reminder that sometimes the past refused to stay buried, that it could claw its way back to the surface when you least expected it. As he dug deeper into the minivan, he found an old blanket crumpled against the rear seat. It was soft and worn, the kind of blanket a child might cling to for comfort. He held it against his chest for a moment, closing his eyes as he let the memories wash over him. It reminded him of simpler times when he would wrap Sarah in a similar blanket, reading her stories under the stars. But those days were gone, lost in the shadows of what was now something much darker. A surge of determination filled him as he opened his eyes, glancing at the suitcase one more time. It was then that he noticed a small, crumpled piece of paper peeking out from the bag. Heart racing, he reached in and pulled it out, unfolding it carefully. It was a handwritten note, barely legible, but the words struck a chord within him. "Help me." The simple phrase echoed in his mind, reverberating like a cry for help that had been lost in the wind. He could feel the weight of the world shifting beneath him, the ground trembling with the unspoken truths that lay hidden. He had to know what had happened, and he had to understand the connection to his own past. As he stood there, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden light over everything. It was a beautiful sight, but it felt ominous against the backdrop of the minivan. The horizon seemed to stretch endlessly, and Joe felt a sense of urgency building within him. He couldn't just stand there. He stepped back from the minivan, determination coursing through his veins. He would find the answers, not just for the family that had vanished, but for himself. The past had a way of haunting him, but he was ready to confront it. As he turned to leave, a noise broke the silence, leaves rustling as if someone was nearby. Joe's heart raced, adrenaline flooding his system. He whirled around, scanning the trees, but there was nothing, just the wind, whispering secrets only it could understand. He took a step back toward the minivan. The note crumpled tightly in his fist, and as he did, he could feel the weight of those unspoken words surrounding him. He wasn't just uncovering a mystery. He was digging into the depths of his own soul, confronting the darkness he had long tried to escape. With a resolute breath, he opened the minivan's glove compartment again, hoping for more clues. There had to be something, anything that could shed light on the family's story. As he sifted through the contents, he found a faded photograph tucked beneath the empty forms. The image was worn, but still clear enough to make out a smiling woman, her hair blowing in the wind, holding hands with two children, one boy and one girl. They looked so blissfully happy, as if the world held no burdens for them. Joe felt a lump in his throat as he traced the lines of the woman's face with his finger. There was a familiarity there, a resonance that he couldn't quite place. The children were laughing, their innocence shining bright against the dull backdrop of the desert landscape. He turned the photo over, hoping to find some names, but instead it was blank, another reminder of lost stories, unfinished narratives. His mind raced with questions. Who were they? What had led them to this desolate place? And where were they now? Joe felt the weight of their absence pressing down on him, as if he were being called to honor their memory by uncovering the truth. This wasn't just about a missing family anymore. It was about facing the past, confronting the ghosts that had haunted him for too long. The sound of an engine broke through his thoughts. He straightened up, heart pounding as he looked down the road. A police cruiser came into view, tires crunching on the gravel as it approached. Relief washed over him, but it was mixed with apprehension. He glanced back at the minivan, the toys, the bear, the note, everything he had just discovered. Would they understand the weight of what he had found? The cruiser parked nearby, and two officers stepped out. One was a familiar face, Officer Ramirez, who had patrolled these roads longer than Joe. The other was a younger man, fresh out of the academy, with bright eyes and an eager expression. Joe stepped toward them, clutching the photograph tightly. "Hey, Joe," Ramirez greeted, his tone friendly yet serious. "What do we have here?" Joe hesitated, glancing back at the minivan. "I found this. It looks like it's been abandoned, and there's a note, a photograph." His voice trailed off as he struggled to convey the gravity of the situation. Ramirez nodded, his expression shifting to one of concern. "All right, let's take a look." Joe led them to the minivan, the scent of dust and forgotten dreams lingering in the air. As they approached, the younger officer glanced around, taking in the desolation, while Ramirez examined the vehicle closely. "What do you think?" Joe asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile nature of the moment. "Looks like it's been here for a while," Ramirez said, peering inside. "Do you see anything unusual?" Joe pointed to the toys scattered in the back seat, the empty car seat, and finally the suitcase. "I found this note," he said, handing it to Ramirez, who read it quietly. The younger officer leaned in closer, curiosity evident in his eyes. "This is serious," Ramirez said, his voice low but firm. "We'll need to report this immediately. It's possible someone is missing." Joe held his breath, the weight of their words sinking in. He could feel the urgency in the air, the adrenaline buzzing through him. The once quiet landscape now felt alive, filled with the echoes of unanswered questions and hidden truths. "Can you think back, Joe?" Ramirez said, turning back to him. "Did you see any cars or people around here recently?" Joe racked his brain, trying to remember. I didn't see anyone. Just the tracks leading here. I thought it was strange, but I didn't realize." His voice faltered as he felt the enormity of the situation settle over him. "We'll need to canvass the area," Ramirez said, glancing at his partner. "Let's see if anyone in the nearby towns has reported anything." And as they began their investigation, Joe felt a sense of purpose swell within him. He had opened a door to a mystery that demanded to be solved. As the officers worked, he wandered back toward the minivan, the photograph still clenched tightly in his fist. The sun continued its descent, casting long shadows that danced around him, reminding him of the stories that lingered just beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. He looked at the photograph once more, tracing the faces of the woman and children. They had been joyfully alive, and now they were missing. All that remained was this echo of happiness, a haunting reminder of the lives that had once filled the minivan with laughter. In that moment, Joe made a silent vow. He would not rest until he discovered the truth about this family, and perhaps, in doing so, he would also find a way to come to terms with his own past. The shadows might linger, but he would shine a light into the darkness, unearthing the stories that deserved to be told. As the officers moved around him, their voices a soft murmur in the background, Joe felt an undeniable shift within himself. This was no longer just a routine patrol. It was a journey into the unknown, a path that would lead him to confront the ghosts of his past and the pain that had been buried for too long. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with hues of orange and crimson, as if the very heavens were urging him forward. And with that, Joe felt the first stirrings of hope. He would uncover the mysteries of the past, not just for the family lost in this landscape, but for himself, and perhaps for his sister Sarah as well. The journey was just beginning. Joe couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of something monumental. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a golden glow across the dusty landscape, he felt the weight of the situation settle heavily upon him. The officers moved methodically around the minivan, documenting the scene, taking photographs, and searching for any clues that might lead them to answers. While they worked, Joe stood nearby, his mind racing with possibilities. What had happened to the family? Where had they gone? He couldn't help but replay the images of the photograph in his mind, the smiling woman, the carefree children. They seemed so full of life, and yet here was their abandoned minivan, a testament to a story that remained untold. "Joe!" Ramirez called out, breaking through his thoughts. "Can you recall anything else? Any unusual vehicles or people you might have seen on your patrol?" The question hung in the air, and Joe racked his brain for anything that might help. He remembered the last few weeks of his patrols, the long stretches of road, the occasional sighting of a rancher or a lost traveler, but nothing that stood out as strange or alarming. "I can't think of anything," he admitted, frustration lacing his voice. "It's just been quiet." The younger officer, whose name Joe learned was Officer Daniels, stepped over, concern etched on his face. "You mentioned finding the note, right?" he asked, his tone gentle yet probing. "Can we see it again?" Joe handed over the crumpled piece of paper, the words, "Help me," stark against the faded lines. Both officers studied it carefully, and Joe could see the gravity of the situation dawning on them. "This could mean a lot," Ramirez said, his brow furrowed. "It suggests someone was in danger, possibly needing to escape. It's not uncommon for victims of domestic violence to find themselves in situations like this. Sometimes they just vanish." "Or they're forced to leave," Daniels added, his voice low. "We need to treat this seriously. We should reach out to local shelters, see if anyone has reported missing family members recently." Joe felt a chill run down his spine. The thought that these children might have been in danger, that they might have been fleeing something terrible, sent a wave of nausea through him. He recalled his sister's struggles, the way she had tried to break free from her own circumstances. It all felt eerily familiar, like a ghost from his past resurfacing to remind him of what he couldn't save. "Let's not waste any time," Ramirez said, his voice clipped with urgency. He turned and began to walk back toward the cruiser, gesturing for Daniels to follow. "I'll radio this in and see if we can get a missing person report filed right away. Joe, can you stay here and keep an eye on the minivan? We might need to come back for it." "Sure," Joe replied, his heart heavy. "I'll be right here." As they drove away, Joe felt a sense of isolation creeping in once again. The sun was now setting, casting an amber glow across the endless Texas plains, and he stood alone with the remnants of a family that had once been whole. He glanced at the minivan, taking in the toys, the empty car seat, and the suitcase that had been left behind. The longer he stood there, the more the scene seemed to press in on him, as if the very air was saturated with unanswered questions. He took a deep breath and stepped back into the minivan. The interior felt like a time capsule, frozen in a moment of chaos and abandonment. Joe's fingers brushed against the dusty dashboard, and he tried to imagine the last moments the family had spent here. Had they been happy? Were they laughing? Or had fear gripped them? Pulling the blanket closer around his shoulders for comfort, he caught sight of the stuffed bear once more. It was small, its button eyes reflecting the fading light. He picked it up, cradling it in his hands as if it were a fragile piece of their lost story. "I'll find out what happened to you," he vowed softly. "I promise." As the shadows lengthened, Joe felt a sense of determination rise within him. This wasn't just about finding a missing family. It was about confronting his own demons, the guilt and regret that had haunted him for years. He wanted to understand their story because it echoed his own, that ache of loss and the desperate need for resolution. Moments stretched into an eternity as he waited by the minivan. The sun finally disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving behind a canvas of stars twinkling overhead. The vastness of the night sky filled him with a sense of wonder and fear. Would he find answers, or would he be left with more questions? The sound of tires on gravel pulled him from his thoughts. The cruiser returned, and Joe's heart quickened as Ramirez and Daniels stepped out, urgency written across their faces. "Good news," Ramirez said, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We've got a lead. A family matching the description from your photograph was reported missing last month." Joe felt a rush of emotions wash over him, relief mixed with anxiety. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "We'll need to investigate further," Daniels replied, his energy palpable. "We're going to head to the local shelters and see if we can gather more information. We'll also start reaching out to local authorities in neighboring counties. We don't want to miss anything." "That's a good plan," Joe said, his resolve strengthening. "I want to help in any way I can." Ramirez nodded, appreciation in his eyes. "We could use your insight. You know this area better than anyone. If you remember anything else, no matter how small, just let us know." The trio spent the next hour discussing the details of the case, mapping out a strategy for their investigation. Joe shared his memories of the area, the roads he'd patrolled, and the people he'd come across. He felt a sense of camaraderie growing between them, the shared goal binding them together, a desire to uncover the truth. As the night wore on, they formulated a plan. Ramirez and Daniels would head to the nearby shelters first, while Joe would remain with the minivan, watching for any sign of the family or their belongings. Their hope was to gather any additional information that could help piece together the family's story. As the officers drove away once more, Joe felt a sense of purpose swell within him. He was no longer just a bystander. He was part of something larger, something meaningful. He glanced back at the minivan, its presence both haunting and comforting. With the stars shining brightly above him, Joe took a seat on the ground next to the minivan, the cool earth beneath him grounding him in a way nothing else could. He pulled out the photograph once more, studying the faces of the woman and children, searching for any hint of recognition. He had to believe that they were still out there, that this wasn't the end of their story. Time passed slowly, but Joe was determined to stay vigilant. He listened to the sounds of the night, the distant calls of coyotes, the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the faint hum of the world around him. Each noise felt like a reminder that life continued, even in the midst of uncertainty. Suddenly, headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the dark like a beacon. Joe stood, heart racing as the vehicle approached, praying that it was the family, or perhaps someone who could provide answers. But as it came closer, he recognized the vehicle, a small sedan belonging to a local couple who often stopped by the diner where he worked part-time. "Hey, Joe," the driver called out, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile. "What are you doing out here all alone?" "Just keeping an eye on this minivan," Joe replied, trying to mask the tension in his voice. The couple exchanged glances, concern evident in their expressions. "Is everything all right?" the woman asked, peering past him at the vehicle. Joe hesitated, considering how much to share. "I found it abandoned. There's a family that's missing, and the police are looking into it." "Oh, no," the man said, shaking his head. "That's terrible. Do you think they're okay?" "I don't know," Joe admitted, feeling the weight of uncertainty press down on him. "But I need to find out." The couple nodded, their expressions turning serious. "If there's anything we can do to help, just let us know," the woman said, her voice gentle. "Thank you," Joe replied, grateful for their support. They lingered for a moment, offering him words of encouragement before continuing on their way. Once again, he was left alone with the weight of the situation. Minutes turned into hours, and the stars twinkled overhead as the night deepened. Joe's resolve remained firm, but the stillness around him began to feel oppressive. The absence of answers felt like a living thing, pressing in on him as he sat near the minivan. Just when he thought he might succumb to the solitude, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. Heart racing, he stood, scanning the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Joe's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the outline. "Joe?" A voice called out, and relief flooded through him. "Ramirez! Daniels!" he shouted, rushing forward to greet them. "Did you find anything?" "More than we expected," Ramirez said, his tone serious. "We spoke to someone at the shelter who recognized the family from your photograph. They were here a few weeks ago, but left in a hurry. It sounds like they were escaping a dangerous situation." Joe's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "They had been staying with a friend, but there was an altercation," Daniels explained, his expression somber. "The woman mentioned that her partner had been abusive and she was trying to get away. She took the kids and left in the middle of the night, and it seems they haven't been heard from since." Joe felt a chill run down his spine, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "So they could still be out there?" he asked, hope mixing with fear. "Possibly," Ramirez replied, "but we need to act fast. We're going to start a search in the surrounding areas. If they're on the run, they could be anywhere. Can I help?" Joe asked, urgency flooding his voice. "I know these roads. I've patrolled them for years. I can look for any signs, anything unusual." Ramirez exchanged glances with Daniels and then nodded. "All right, let's do this. You know this area better than anyone. We'll split up and cover more ground." As the plan took shape, adrenaline surged through Joe. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, an unwavering determination to help this family find safety. They quickly climbed back into their vehicles and set off into the night, each of them scanning the landscape for any sign of the missing family. Driving down the dirt roads, Joe felt a sense of connection to the land. The hills and valleys stretched endlessly before him, illuminated by the beams of headlights cutting through the darkness. He thought about the woman and her children, The fear they must have felt, the hope that had driven them to flee. It mirrored his own struggles with his sister, and he felt a surge of empathy for their plight. Hours passed as they scoured the area. Each turn of the road brought a new wave of anticipation, but with each passing moment, the hope began to wane. The vastness of the Texas landscape was both beautiful and daunting, a reminder of how easily someone could get lost. Just as they were about to regroup, Joe spotted something out of the corner of his eye, an old farmhouse nestled among the trees. It had been abandoned for years, but something about it felt off. He pulled over, his instincts kicking in, and got out of the truck. "Guys," he called into the radio, "I think I found something. I'm going to check out this old farmhouse." "Be careful, Joe," Ramirez replied, concern edging his voice. "We'll be right there." Joe approached the farmhouse cautiously, the wooden steps creaking beneath his weight. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay, the windows dark and foreboding. He peered inside, his heart racing as he scanned the dim interior. As he stepped into the foyer, he felt a chill run down his spine. The floor was littered with debris, and the walls were lined with peeling wallpaper. But there was something about the place that felt alive, as if it had witnessed countless stories unfold within its walls. "Hello?" he called out tentatively, his voice echoing off the walls. "Is anyone here?" Silence met his ears, but as he moved deeper into the house, he noticed something, a flicker of movement in the corner of his eye. He turned, heart pounding, and saw a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. "Guys, I think I'm onto something," he said into the radio, his voice low but urgent. "I'm going to check this out." He approached the door, every instinct screaming at him to tread carefully. As he pushed it open, he was met with a small room, dimly lit by the fading light outside. In the corner sat a pile of blankets, and as he stepped closer, he could see the outline of a small figure curled up beneath them. "Hey, it's okay," he said gently, kneeling down. "I'm not here to hurt you. Are you lost?" To his shock, the figure stirred. A young girl, no more than 5 or 6, blinked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Joe," he replied softly. "I'm here to help. Are you alone?" The girl shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "My mom is... she's gone." Joe's heart sank. "Gone where?" "I don't know," she said, her voice trembling. "She told me to stay here. She said it was safer." "Okay," Joe said, trying to remain calm. "Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," the girl replied, her voice fragile. "All right, Lily. I'm going to help you find your mom, okay? Can you tell me what happened?" As she began to recount her story, Joe listened intently, piecing together the fragments of their lives. Lily spoke of darkness, of running away, of hiding. She described her mother's fear, the need to escape. Joe felt a surge of empathy as the words spilled from the young girl's lips, each one laced with a haunting innocence. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Joe's heart raced once more. "Stay here, Lily," he whispered, his instincts kicking in. He crept toward the entrance, ready to confront whoever was approaching. As the door swung open, Ramirez and Daniels entered, their expressions shifting from worry to relief as they spotted Joe. "Did you find her?" Ramirez asked, his voice low. Joe nodded, gesturing to the small figure huddled beneath the blankets. "Her name's Lily. She's alone." The officers exchanged glances, and in an instant they were kneeling beside the little girl, their demeanor shifting to one of gentle kindness. "Hey there, Lily," Ramirez said softly, his voice soothing. "You're safe now. We're here to help you." Lily looked up at them, uncertainty flashing in her eyes, but Joe could see that her trust was being cautiously earned. "Is my mom coming back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Let's get you out of here first, okay?" Daniel said gently, taking her small hand. We'll find your mom. I promise. As they led Lily out of the farmhouse, Joe felt a swell of hope. He had stepped into the darkness of the unknown, and now they were bringing a light back to a little girl who had lost her way. The night sky stretched above them, the stars twinkling like distant dreams. The journey was far from over. They had yet to find Lily's mother, to uncover the full story. But in that moment, as they stepped back into the vast Texas landscape, Joe felt a sense of purpose that burned bright within him. They would not give up. They would face whatever darkness lay ahead, and together they would write a new chapter in a story that had long been shrouded in shadow. For the first time in a long while, Joe felt that hope could be a guiding light, leading them all toward a brighter tomorrow. As Joe, Ramirez, and Daniels drove down the winding back roads, the urgency of their task filled the air like a tangible force. The moonlight cast a silvery glow over the landscape, illuminating the fields that stretched endlessly on either side. Joe's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the night's events, but from the weight of the responsibility he now felt for Lily and her mother. "Do you think they're okay?" Joe asked, breaking the silence that had settled in the vehicle. The question hung heavy, laden with worry and concern for a family they had yet to fully understand. "I hope so," Ramirez replied, his tone steady, yet imbued with the worry that mirrored Joe's own. "But we can't stop until we find them. If they're on the run, they're likely scared and looking for safety." Daniels, who had been tapping into the radio, added, "I'm reaching out to the local shelters and police departments in the surrounding counties. We'll have eyes looking for them everywhere." As they drove, Joe's mind raced back to the moments before they had found Lily. The empty minivan, the toys scattered like remnants of a life once lived, and the haunting thoughts of what had driven them to flee. He recalled the photograph of the smiling family, their faces frozen in time. Each detail played over and over in his mind, fueling his determination to uncover the truth. "Do you think they'll head back to the shelter?" Joe mused, trying to piece together the timeline of events. If her mother thought Lily was still missing, she might feel safe there. "It's possible," Ramirez said. "But in situations like this, people can lose their way, both literally and figuratively. They might not trust anyone, especially if they were fleeing someone dangerous." That thought sent a chill down Joe's spine. The notion that Lily's mother could be out there, alone and afraid, was overwhelming. This wasn't just about finding her, it was about protecting her from whatever had driven them both into hiding. As they continued down the road, the headlights from their vehicle bounced off the occasional sign marking the outskirts of small towns. Each one felt like a lifeline, a potential beacon leading them closer to the family they sought. Joe's focus sharpened, his instincts honed by the urgency of the mission. "We should split up once we reach the next county line," Ramirez suggested. "The more ground we cover, the better our chances of finding her." Joe nodded in agreement. "I'll take the back roads. They're less traveled, and if she's trying to avoid being seen, that might be where she's headed." "Good idea," Daniels agreed. "I'll contact the local authorities and let them know we're out here. They can keep an eye out for any signs of them." The tension in the vehicle was palpable as they made their way through the quiet roads. The vastness of Texas at night felt both reassuring and isolating, the emptiness echoing the urgency of their search. Each mile felt like a test of their resolve and determination. When they reached the county line, they quickly formulated a plan. Joe took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "Remember, we're looking for a woman with brown hair in a blue jacket. If we see anyone who fits that description, we need to approach carefully." "Absolutely," Ramirez replied, his authoritative demeanor settling in. "We don't want to spook her if she's still in a vulnerable state." With their instructions clear, they went their separate ways, each of them driven by a shared purpose. Joe turned onto a narrow dirt road. the crunch of gravel beneath his tires, a steady reminder of the urgency that filled the night. As he drove, memories of his own sister Sarah flooded back. He thought of the times he had wished to protect her from the world, the helplessness that had gripped him as he watched her struggle. He wished he could have been there to save her, to shield her from the darkness that had enveloped her life. "Not this time," he muttered to himself, determination pouring through him. "Not this time." The road twisted and turned, revealing nothing but the shadows cast by the moonlight. Joe kept his focus sharp, scanning the sides of the road for any sign of movement. Each rustle of leaves, each flicker of light felt significant. He was hyper-aware, his senses heightened by the weight of the task at hand. Suddenly he spotted something, a flicker of movement up ahead. Heart racing, he slowed the vehicle, straining to see through the darkness. There, just off the side of the road, was a figure. Joe's pulse quickened as he squinted, hoping against hope that it was Lily's mother. "Please let it be her," he whispered, gripping the wheel tightly as he pulled up alongside the figure. He rolled down the window, his heart pounding. "Excuse me, are you looking for someone? A little girl named Lily." The figure turned, and it was as if time slowed. Before him stood a woman, her hair disheveled, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. She wore a blue jacket that looked faded and worn, and in that moment, recognition flickered in Joe's mind. "Lily!" the woman gasped. "Where is she?" "She's safe. We found her," Joe exclaimed, his voice thick with emotion. "She's at the shelter, and we're here to help you." The woman's expression shifted from fear to a glimmer of hope, though the shadows of uncertainty still lingered in her eyes. "I thought I lost her. I was so scared." "Let's get you back to her," Joe said, his voice steady. "I'll drive you there." As she climbed into the passenger seat, Joe felt a surge of relief wash over him. They were so close now, so close to reuniting this family. He quickly made a U-turn, heading back toward the shelter, the weight of responsibility still heavy on his shoulders, but buoyed by the hope that they would be complete again. As they drove, the woman, who introduced herself as Claire, began to share snippets of her story. "I had to leave," she explained, her voice shaking. "He was getting worse. I couldn't risk Lily's safety anymore." "I understand," Joe said, his heart aching for her. "You did the right thing." Claire's eyes filled with tears, and Joe could see the toll that fear had taken on her. "I was trying to find a way to get help, but I didn't know where to go. I just wanted to keep her safe." Joe nodded, knowing all too well the desperation that could drive someone to flee into the night. "We'll make sure you both get the help you need," he promised, his voice firm with conviction. As they approached the shelter, bright lights illuminated the entrance, and a sense of urgency filled the air. Joe parked and jumped out, opening Claire's door. "Let's go get Lily." Together they rushed inside, and Joe could hear the sound of laughter and chatter echoing in the hallway. The warmth of the shelter wrapped around them like a safety net, and Joe felt a sense of purpose ignite within him. "Lily!" Claire called out, her voice breaking as she searched the room. The sight of her daughter brought tears to her eyes. "Mom!" Lily's voice rang out, and in an instant they were in each other's arms, both sobbing with relief and joy. Joe stepped back, feeling a mix of emotions swell within him. Satisfaction, hope, and the bittersweet sting of memories from his own past. The shelter staff rushed over, offering support and comfort to the reunited family. Joe stood back, watching as they embraced, a wave of calm washing over him. They were safe now, together again, and he felt a profound sense of fulfillment in helping them find their way back to each other. As the night wore on, Joe remained in the background, allowing Claire and Lily to settle in. They would need time to heal, but for now, they had each other, and that was enough. The darkness that had once surrounded them was fading, replaced by a flicker of hope. In that moment, Joe realized that he had not only helped save Lily and Claire, but had also begun to find a way to heal his own wounds. The echoes of his past were still there, but they no longer held power over him. He had faced the darkness, and in doing so, had brought light back into someone else's life. As he stepped outside for a moment of solitude, he looked up at the night sky, filled with stars. Each one twinkled like a promise, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could shine through. The journey was not over, but he felt stronger now, ready to face whatever lay ahead. With a renewed sense of purpose, Joe turned back toward the shelter, knowing that he had made a difference. The bonds of family, love, and resilience were powerful forces, and he was grateful to be part of this story, a story of survival, hope, and the unbreakable spirit of a mother's love for her child. As Joe stood outside the shelter, he let the cool night air wash over him, grounding him as he took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. The stars twinkled above, each one a reminder of the hope that had brought Claire and Lily back together after the turmoil they had endured. But as comforting as the night sky was, the complexities of their situation weighed heavily on his mind. He could hear the sounds of laughter and quiet chatter emanating from within the shelter. It was a sharp contrast to the fear and chaos that had engulfed Claire and Lily just hours earlier. Joe felt a deep empathy for the struggles they had faced. The memories of his sister Sarah surfaced, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was not only helping another family, but also confronting his own past. "Hey," Ramirez's voice drew him back to the present, breaking through his thoughts as he approached. "You good?" Joe turned to face him, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just thinking." "About Claire and Lily?" Ramirez asked, leaning against the building beside him. "Yeah," Joe admitted, glancing back at the shelter. "I can't help but think about everything they've been through. It's heartbreaking." "I know what you mean," Ramirez replied, his tone somber. "We're doing everything we can to help them, but the road ahead might be bumpy." Joe nodded, feeling the weight of those words. "Do you think they'll be okay?" "I believe so," Ramirez said firmly. "They'll need support, and we'll make sure they get it, but it's going to take time for them to heal." As they spoke, Joe's resolve deepened. He realized that he wanted to be part of that healing process, not just as a witness to their struggles, but as an active participant in their journey toward recovery. He wanted to help them feel safe, to give them the tools they needed to regain control over their lives. "Let's head back inside," Ramirez suggested, glancing toward the door. "We need to discuss the next steps with the team and ensure that Claire and Lily have everything they need." With a nod, Joe followed Ramirez back into the shelter, the warmth of the interior wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. They quickly rejoined the staff and officers gathered in a small meeting room. Joe felt a sense of camaraderie as they discussed strategies to assist Claire and Lily, ensuring that they had access to counseling, legal support, and everything else they needed to navigate the next steps. "First, we need to provide a safe environment for them," a shelter coordinator said, her voice steady as she spoke. "We'll assign them a caseworker who can help them integrate into the system and connect them with resources." "I think it's important that they feel secure," Joe interjected, feeling the weight of his own experiences. "They've been through so much already. We need to be sensitive to their needs." The team nodded in agreement, understanding the significance of creating a safe space for both Claire and Lily. They discussed the logistics of providing private accommodations at the shelter where they could have personal space while still being part of the supportive community. As the meeting progressed, Joe found himself taking a more active role, suggesting ideas and contributing to the conversation. He felt empowered, knowing he could make a difference in Claire and Lily's lives, but he also grappled with his own emotions and memories. After the meeting, Joe stepped out into the main area of the shelter, where families were beginning to settle down for the night. The atmosphere felt hopeful, with laughter intermingling with the soft sounds of children playing. It was a reminder that even amidst hardship, there was still joy and resilience to be found. He spotted Claire and Lily in a corner where Claire was reading a bedtime story to her daughter. The way Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes wide with wonder as she listened to her mother's soothing voice, filled Joe's heart with warmth. He could see the bond between them, strong, unbreakable, and filled with love. Just then, Claire looked up and caught Joe's gaze. A soft smile spread across her face, and she waved him over. "Would you like to join us?" she asked, her voice genuine. "Sure, I'd love to," Joe replied, moving closer. As he settled down beside them, he couldn't help but feel a sense of comfort in their presence. It was a stark contrast to the chaos they had experienced earlier, a reminder of the power of love and family. "What story are you reading?" Joe asked, glancing at the book in Claire's hands. "It's one of Lily's favorites," Claire replied. "It's about a brave little mouse who goes on an adventure to find her way home." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "And the mouse makes all sorts of friends along the way," she chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. Joe smiled, realizing how much this moment meant to them. "That sounds like a great adventure. I bet the little mouse learns a lot about herself too." "Yes," Lily exclaimed, nodding vigorously. "She learns to be brave just like me." "Exactly," Joe said, meeting Claire's gaze. They shared a moment of understanding, the connection deepening between them. Joe felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing he could help foster that bravery in both of them as they navigated this new chapter in their lives. After the story, Lily yawned, her eyelids heavy with sleep. Claire tucked her daughter into a cozy blanket, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sweet dreams, my brave girl," she whispered, her voice filled with love. As Lily drifted off, Claire turned to Joe. "Thank you for being here. I didn't expect to feel so safe tonight." Joe smiled, his heart swelling at her words. "You both deserve to feel safe and supported. We're going to make sure you have the help you need." Claire looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I've been through so much, and I know I still have a long way to go. But it means the world to have someone like you on our side." Joe felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing he could help them navigate their challenges. "We'll take it one step at a time," he assured her. "You don't have to do this alone." As the night deepened, Joe and Claire shared stories, laughter, and dreams while the shadows of their past began to loosen their grip. They spoke of hope, of rebuilding, and of the strength that comes from facing adversity together. Hours later, as Joe prepared to leave for the evening, he looked back at Claire and Lily, now peacefully sleeping in the cozy atmosphere of the shelter. He felt a sense of resolve solidifying within him. They would take the next steps together, forging a new path filled with hope and resilience. As he stepped outside into the cool night air, Joe took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. The stars above twinkled brightly, each one a beacon of promise guiding them forward. He realized that he had not only helped Claire and Lily find their way back to each other, but had also begun to heal his own wounds in the process. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, Joe felt a quiet satisfaction. He knew that love could conquer fear, and that together they could navigate the road ahead, one step at a time. The morning sun poured through the shelter's windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Joe was already awake, sipping coffee and reflecting on the whirlwind of emotions from the previous day. He felt a renewed sense of purpose thinking about Claire and Lily, now safe within the shelter's walls. Today was crucial, a chance for them to begin rebuilding their lives together. After finishing his coffee, Joe made his way to Claire and Lily's room. He knocked softly before entering, wanting to give them a moment of privacy. Claire was sitting on the edge of the bed, her expression a mix of relief and lingering uncertainty. "Good morning," Joe said with a warm smile. "How did you both sleep?" "Pretty well," Claire replied, glancing at Lily, who was still curled up under her blanket. "She fell asleep almost immediately after you left." "Good to hear," he said, feeling a surge of hope. "Are you ready for what today has in store?" Claire took a deep breath, her hands clasping together. "I have to be. I want to make sure Lily is taken care of, but I'm scared. It's completely normal to feel that way," Joe reassured her. "But remember, you're not alone. We're here to help you every step of the way." Just then, a gentle knock interrupted their exchange. The shelter coordinator entered with a bright smile. "Morning, Claire. We have a meeting scheduled with your caseworker and resources available to help you. Are you ready?" Claire nodded, a mix of apprehension and gratitude on her face. "I think so. Thank you for everything." Joe offered his support. "I'll be right here if you need anything." After a quick breakfast, they made their way to the meeting room. Joe walked alongside Claire and Lily, holding the door open for them. Inside, they were greeted by Emily, Claire's caseworker, whose warm demeanor put them at ease. "Good to see you, Claire. We're here to help you navigate the resources available for you and Lily," Emily said, her tone encouraging. Claire took a seat, her expression serious. "I want to make sure Lily is safe. I'm overwhelmed." Emily nodded, understanding. "We'll take it step by step. First, we need to discuss your safety plan and resources like legal assistance and counseling services." Joe listened attentively as Emily outlined the next steps. The discussion focused on securing a protective order against Claire's abuser and exploring options for counseling. Claire's determination to protect Lily was evident despite her fears. After discussing the essentials, Emily turned her attention to Lily. "And how are you feeling today, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Lily looked up, her small voice wavering. "I miss my old home." Joe felt a pang in his heart. "It's okay to miss it, Lily. It was your home, and it's normal to feel that way. But you're strong, and you'll make new memories here." Claire smiled at Joe, grateful for his presence. "We're going to make this a new adventure." With the meeting wrapping up, Emily provided contact information for ongoing support, reinforcing that they could reach out any time. "Remember, we're here for you." As they left the meeting room, Joe sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Claire and Lily were taking crucial steps toward rebuilding their lives, and he was honored to be part of that process. "Let's check out the playground," Joe suggested, noticing the excitement in Lily's eyes. "Can we?" she asked, bouncing on her heels. Claire looked at Joe, her spirit visibly lifted. "Let's go have some fun." At the playground, laughter and joy echoed through the air as Joe pushed Lily on the swings. Claire watched from a nearby bench, a smile spreading across her face as she saw her daughter's delight. It was a moment of pure happiness, a sharp contrast to the turmoil they had faced. When their time at the playground ended, they returned to the shelter, where the atmosphere felt lighter. Joe sensed Claire's growing comfort, a testament to their progress. "Thank you for today," Claire said sincerely. "You've helped us more than you know." Joe shook his head, feeling the warmth of her gratitude. "I'm just glad to be here for you both. You're not alone in this." As the day turned to night, Joe felt a sense of peace wash over him. The stars twinkling above were a reminder of the hope that had guided Claire and Lily back together. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but Joe was ready to stand by them, supporting their path to healing. That evening, as the shelter quieted down, Claire and Lily settled into a cozy corner with a book. Joe watched them from a distance, feeling a contentment grow within him. The bond between mother and daughter was palpable, filled with love and resilience. "Joe," Claire called, breaking his reverie, "would you like to read with us?" "Absolutely," he replied, moving closer. He picked up a book on the table, one with colorful illustrations that caught Lily's attention. "What do you want to read?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "The adventure one, the one with the brave little mouse." Joe grinned. "Great choice." As they began to read together, laughter filled the room, weaving a tapestry of joy amidst the remnants of fear from their past. In that moment, Joe felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were taking steps toward healing, and he was honored to be part of their journey. The path ahead may be uncertain, but together they would navigate whatever challenges arose, one page, one moment at a time. As the days turned into weeks, the shelter became a refuge for Claire and Lily. With Joe's unwavering support, they navigated the complexities of rebuilding their lives, slowly finding solace in routine and community. Each day brought new challenges, but also fresh opportunities for connection and hope. One morning, sunlight poured through the curtains as Joe prepared breakfast. Claire noticed a change in her demeanor. She was smiling more often and seemed less burdened. Attending group therapy sessions had become part of their routine, offering them a chance to share their experiences and connect with others facing similar struggles. "Joe, can we go to the park again today?" Lily asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Of course. Let's pack a picnic," Joe replied, glad to see her enthusiasm. "What do you want to eat?" "Peanut butter sandwiches," Lily shouted, bouncing on her toes. "Yay! Let's make the best sandwiches ever," Joe laughed. As they prepared the picnic, Claire felt a deep gratitude for Joe. "I just want to thank you for everything. You've been such a support for us," she said, sincerity evident in her voice. "I'm just doing what anyone would do," Joe replied, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "You both deserve happiness and safety." With sandwiches packed and a blanket in hand, they headed to the nearby park. The sun shone brightly, and the laughter of children filled the air. Finding a cozy spot on the grass, Joe spread out the blanket with a flourish. "Perfect picnic spot," he declared. Lily squealed with delight, reaching for her sandwich. Claire watched, her heart swelling with gratitude for this moment of normalcy. It was a reminder that life could still hold joy despite their past struggles. As they shared their meal, Joe listened intently to Lily's animated stories about her favorite animals. Claire joined in, laughing at her daughter's silliness. The sound echoed around them, filling the air with warmth. After lunch, they strolled through the park, Lily chasing butterflies. Joe and Claire walked side by side, the warm breeze carrying their laughter. "You know, I think Lily is starting to feel more comfortable," Claire said, her voice hopeful. Joe nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "She's incredibly resilient, just like her mom." Claire smiled at the compliment as they approached a playground. Lily's eyes lit up. "Can we play?" she called, urging them to join her. "Absolutely," Joe replied, running toward the swings while Claire watched, her heart filled with joy. As they played together, laughter rang through the air, a melody of hope and healing. Claire realized they had made it through the darkest days, and they were forging a new life, step by step. Watching Joe and Lily bond, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the unexpected connections formed from their struggles. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the park, Claire knew they still had challenges ahead. But with Joe by their side, she felt a renewed sense of strength and hope, ready to face whatever came next.